Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Pundits podcast. I'm your host Michael Block, and with me today is the man who knows everything. This is your tag theme tune for the day, Simon Canton.
Hey,
Hi Simon, how you doing?
Grant, and you?
Yeah, not too bad. I think anyone who's listening last week will remember that I was still in the throes of some terrible flu. I think I gave it to you, even though you're several thousand miles away. But I seem to be on the road to recovery. I think you're on the road to recovery as well.
Yeah. I mean, I was very ill for a long time, but yeah.
Yeah, something's going around for sure. All right. Well, some news that's happened since the last thing we want to talk about is Leonard Nimoy, who's passed away. I think he passed away on Saturday or Friday evening, Saturday last. So after we recorded the last podcast, I suppose as you grow old in life or older in life, there are people who pass away or people who you'd as a child looked up to or influenced you a lot. He'd certainly be somebody who had, as a TV person, as an actor, as a significant member of one of the most recognizable TV shows perhaps there ever has been in Star Trek and its many iterations, and him being involved as a centerpiece of its many iterations from different generation to generation. He turned up on the Next Generation TV series, which would have been the series that I suppose you and I watched predominantly, the one that became incredibly popular during the 90s. And you know, he was one of the few people to have appeared on those TV series, obviously the original TV series, obviously the original movies, and many of the subsequent movies, and indeed some of the more recent reboots. Used to have heard that I had heard in the media that he had been unwell for a period of time, but certainly I think, you know, his influence will live on, and I suppose that as a creator, I suppose that would have been one of the most important things for him. Did you have any particular thoughts yourself? Was he somebody who influenced you a lot?
No, I wouldn't say so, no. I mean, I enjoyed the Star Trek stuff, obviously, but
maybe more the latter generation as opposed to the first generation of.
Yeah, I guess the original series wasn't, like, I enjoyed the movies, but I was kind of a bit too old for too young for the
Too young, yeah.
movies.
Well, certainly when we were growing up, it was something we would have watched, but we would have watched more. I mean, yes, we would have caught up on the movies, or on the TV show, but I think when we were growing up, you know, kind of being born, me in '75, you know, the movies were something a little bit more prevalent at that stage. The TV series had long been cancelled and renewed, but was obviously in syndication. But even the fact that, I mean, I can remember Leonard Nimoy, and I don't know if this is, maybe you can confirm this, because I was thinking about it at the time. Did he not do a sort of a presenters job on Ripley's Believe It or Not or something like that, or The Strange
Well, I've got his
Science,
IMDb
something,
here.
yeah, Wonders of the World or something like that. You know, he by the time we got to see him in sort of popular television, sure, the show had finished, the movies were living on, but he'd been in a range of things. He was as well. I think he appeared did voiceover work in a number of video games as well. But
He was
certainly,
in Fringe, of course.
he was in.
Fringe?
Oh, of course, as well. Of course, particularly the first and second seasons. And yeah, I mean, in that particular genre, the sci-fi genre, you know, a significant, if you like, celebrity. He'd hate to, I think, be mentioned in those words, but perhaps actor. But a significant character he played at Spock, which, you know, no doubt will live on for forever, and indeed his legacy will live on. But again, that was certainly sad news sometime around the weekend when we heard about that. Moving on from that rather sad news, we're going to play it this week. I understand you're playing Wasteland 2. Now, this is a game I've not played, although I have heard a little bit about it recently in the Games Developer Conference. There was a number of announcements about indie games in particular, Wasteland 2 is coming to consoles as well. Obviously, PC Master Race, it always goes there first, or usually does. Um, Tell us, you've obviously been playing it this week. I've not had a chance to play it. Describe it. Are you having fun? Clearly, you picked it up. Why did you pick it up? Did you read a review, or had you been anticipating this game for a while?
Oh, I was in the Kickstarter for that one.
Oh, okay. So
Uh,
it's another thing you kickstarted.
yeah.
And what was it? What was the What was the thing about the Kickstarter that you liked? I mean, all I think I've ever kickstarted is a running equipment store and Pebble Watch. What was it in particular? Because I know, looking at some of the Kickstarter pages for games, they do some very interesting videos. Was it a video? Was it something you'd read about? What was the catch in for you?
If I remember correctly, it was at the time the fastest funded computer game on Kickstarter.
Hmm.
It funded in 24 hours or 3 days or something, a short amount of time, and then it overfunded and overfunded and overfunded, and I had a look at it, and it said that so the original Wasteland, what they were saying was the precursor to the Fallout games, the first Fallout games. And it's
Hmm.
kind of a top-down adventure game where it's set in the apocalypse, and you're in the post-apocalyptic world, and you're kind of going around trying to survive and get water and stop people from killing you and stuff like that. And
And when you say adventure, I mean, you're not talking here top down. I'm thinking straight away, Gauntlet, that kind of look, Diablo, right? But you're saying adventure game. Are you talking action adventure like Diablo, or are we talking adventure like more puzzles than and sort of that sort of a thing, or is it like Diablo?
so it's like Fallout that we were mentioning last week. That
Mhm.
it's
But that's a first-person shooter, right?
and the Fallout 3 is.
Oh,
Fallout 1
okay,
and 2 aren't. They're the same. They're action adventure games from top-down action adventures games.
okay.
So you get in a battle in Wasteland or Wasteland 2,
Hmm.
and time stops, and it goes, okay, the fastest person in this battle is Mr. X. So Mr. X gets to go first. So you get to sit there for a while and decide, okay, which weapon am I going to use? Am I going to have it in burst fire, or I'm going to have it on single fire? Am I going to aim it at him, or I'm going to aim it at him? And you kind of take it in turns. So it's a turn-based game in that
Okay,
way.
okay.
And the world is text-based rather than being voice-acted. There's some voice acting, but it's limited voice acting, which means that and that was intentional on the part of the developers so that they can make a bigger world. Because if you are going to voice act everything, then there's a limited amount you can do. It costs a lot of money. Whereas,
Sure, and this is a small team kickstarting sort of a small game, and the gameplay being king, I assume.
so so it's kind of a very old school kind of game. Like Wasteland 2 is very true to the 1990s games of the same type. There's it's not as updated as say XCOM Enemy Unknown would have been.
Sure, I'm looking at a little video of it here. I mean, PC World is saying it was the game of the year when it came out.
Mm.
Um,
It's very enjoyable. It's
and,
just
and, and when you say it's turn-based, I mean it's a few. I've rarely played turn-based games. I played Costume Quest 2 recently, and I'd never really played an RPG, turn-based RPG, and I actually found it quite good fun because there's not a lot of gameplay in the sense of it's not like a beat 'em up where you go button 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 slash 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 or whatever, and it's not a first-person shooter. It's just timing of button prompts. So in many respects, people give bad
Costume
about
Quest.
quick time games.
Costume
Yeah,
Quest is a JRPG. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
it's
But
similar. It's not quite the same, but yeah, it's similar.
yeah, but your one is like that, but it actually has a little bit more. I mean, Costume Quest is very, it's great because actually it's kind of one of those games you pleasantly kind of go through it, solve a few puzzles, and you get on with it. Your one seems a bit more action orientated than that, I have to say. Like, would
Yeah,
that be right?
I've played JRPGs before, and they're more kind of puzzly
Hmm.
than this would be. This has more action to it. Um, at the same time, it's not like
It's
a
not
lot of it.
Smash Brothers. It's not like Super Smash Brothers or something like that, or
No, there's
Smash
not.
TV. Yeah, there's no Smash TV. It's not like you're going around, shooting to the left whilst walking to the right, that kind of stuff.
No, I mean every time someone attacks you, you stop,
Yeah.
and you get to decide what you want to do. So,
And
so yeah.
okay, and very well. I mean, I'm reading some stuff here from GameSpot. They've done a video here. There's an ID at Xbox sort of announcement. As I said, it's one of Microsoft's 50 odd games they announced yesterday through the independent games program they have that's coming to Xbox. I sound like I'm an ad for Microsoft at the moment, but obviously they're quoting a lot number of the PC magazines because it's only been reviewed on PC so far, and certainly it seems to have gotten, one of the few. And there's a lot of games that come out of Kickstarter that actually are really well received. Obviously, there's a lot of trash as well, and there's a lot that don't come out, and that's one of the biggest problems with the Kickstarter on games. So you're happy with your purchase? I mean, obviously you invested on the Kickstarter, you probably got a free game on foot of that and whatever else. You're happy with the content? Is it what you thought it would be?
Yeah, I mean, out of the games that I invested in, so I don't know, maybe there was 10 or 15 in total, and probably 10 out of those have been disappointments. So this is one of the 5 that is, a decent game.
Yeah.
It's enjoyable when you eventually get it. I'd be interested to. I would wonder how they're going to deal with the console controller, though, because the game itself is very much about actions. Like you've got 10 different actions that your character can do at any one time.
Right.
Quite a.
But because it pauses, yeah.
Huh? Sorry.
I presume because when it stops, what will happen is there'll just be like a drop-down menu going dick, 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 and then restart time type of stuff. Isn't that
Well, you could
much?
do that. No, it's more that you can do those actions at any time, even when you're not in combat.
I see.
So, like I could say if one of my characters had the perception perk, then I can do a perception check whenever I like, and that perception check might say, "Oh, there's a mine just in front of you. You better not step there." And then I could click on a different character and say, "Okay, I want to defuse that mine," and then that character will go over and try and defuse the mine. So that means that you have to, on a PC, you just click 3 buttons and you've done it. But on a console, that would mean a lot of radial menus in order to go, okay, I want this character, and then I want to go to this action, and then I want to
Oh
do
no,
this,
you're right.
and I wanted
You
to do
are
it
right.
on that.
I mean, like you got 4 buttons, and at tops, you got 2 more triggers and maybe 2 more bumper buttons. So at tops, you're talking, 8 buttons in total, using absolutely everything. So, well, I mean, they have the D-pad as well. I mean, they'll work around it. There's no doubt.
Oh, they work.
They might cut out features, though, is I suppose the big concern
Yeah.
there on that one. But you're having fun with it, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I'm
how
still
long
playing.
how long did you complete it? How long is it, or is it a big game?
I've let's see, on Steam, 12 hours so far, and that's through the training mission, basically.
Okay.
So there's the first mission where you're told, "Hey, Rangers, I know you're new here, but you need to go out and defend someone because they're about to die." And you're told there's 2 different towns, one called AG Center, other one called High Tower, something like that. And as you get towards the 2 towns, they both call you and they both go, "Hey, we're about to die here. You need to get here," and basically need to choose because one of them is just going to get destroyed and die, and the other one you can save. So I picked AG Center, and then when you go over to High Tower afterwards, it's just a burnt-out wreck. Like there's nothing left to it.
Yeah, Sophie's choice. Sophie's choice. No, well, sounds good. I mean, I'll be checking it out certainly when it comes to Xbox, and maybe who knows, it'll be one of those games that's going to have some sort of cross-platform. Is there multiplayer at all in that at all?
No.
Or is it a single-player experience? Okay.
Just single player.
Okay, well, I've been playing Sunset Overdrive. It's a game I got sometime in November when it was released, and I kind of got stuck. I played up to a point, and then other things took place, and I kind of didn't get back to it. And it's one of those weird games where it's described. I mean, I think I linked you to a Eurogamer article. There's a lot of descriptions for it. It's a fun game. In some respects, it reminds me of I think Jet Set Radio is a game I remember hearing a lot about and playing at certain times ages ago. Crackdown I've played, but not an awful lot of. It's described by Eurogamer as a blend of Crackdown and Jet Set Radio. One thing I will say is it's a game which takes the piss out. Humorous. The graphics are good. They're very solid. They're very colourful. They're not dreary and drab. It is a kind of a zombie apocalypse thing, but it's not a Walking Dead sort of a style. It's very kind of meta cool, and a lot of the reviews initially about it were sort of saying it's too cool for school. Like its humor was a little bit, hit or miss. But I mean, you're not going to decide necessarily a game on its humor alone, and humor is subjective. But it's one thing is it's not something you kind of, if you stay on the ground and walk around, there's no kind of run button. It's kind of, if you stay on the ground and walk around and you use your sword or use your baton or whatever, or use your guns, you'll eventually get overrun. Like, you just can't do that. It's all, you're walking on the ground, you jump onto a rail and you slide down, you can go quick. Or you can jump up even further onto a telephone pole and slide up and down the wires, or slide up and down the top of roofs while shooting people. So effectively what you do is, following my finger on the screen, you might have a big boss walking up and down the street. So you go high and you start going down the wire one direction while shooting at him. So you might be heading backwards while shooting at him. And then as soon as you're running out of rope or you're about to turn a corner, you click the button and you go back and shoot at him again. So you're kind of just traversing the same space, or maybe even going around in circles if you're particularly good. So it's got a lot of traversal. You're kind of almost meant to be moving all the time, but you don't do that on the ground. It's not like running around in the ground. You'll just be too slow for that. So it's all kind of getting onto wires and moving around that way whilst shooting and defeating your target. So it's quite vertical in that way. It's quite good. But when you start off, there's a lot of skill trees and stuff like that, which I don't really understand. But you know that the longer you play the game, the more it's like your jump has improved, or your grinding has improved, or you get a thing like an air dash. So you get moves that you just didn't have at the start of the game. So a space between you and the next wire, and you just simply couldn't jump there. You simply would have to go down to the ground, find somewhere else to get back up. Now you get better, and you're like, oh, I can literally never touch the ground again, for whatever, the more powerful you get. And again, your guns increase, and you get all these amps, and there's all sorts of stuff. It's a third-person sort of behind the shoulder, a bit like Dead Rising in that regard, but with a different atmosphere, and more concentrating on traversal. It's a fun game. One thing I will say is that when you leave it for a few months, because traversal is quite important, and it's not naturally intuitive, you're almost relearning. It's like, oh, right, I need to kind of get good at this, because before I was like able to grind, jump, do, right, and you're kind of all into one movement. And when you don't do that, it's a bit weird. And of course, with all third-person games, the classic problem is how good is the camera? Because the way sometimes you're jumping forward, but actually the camera's to the side or whatever, and there's a lot of, you're jumping around corners. How does the camera deal with that? And it does okay, but I mean, I would say there's issues with that. But fun game. God, there seems like a huge amount of content. I mean, if you get through, I haven't got through the story yet, and actually, I won on Twitter. There's an Irish Xbox thing. I won the season pass, which is worth 20 quid, just by tweeting something. So there's 2 or 3 different new story moves. So I think the story itself and the season pass, which like I said, it got for free, it's big enough. But if you actually did the collectibles, like try and get all the fizzy balloons, or try and get all whatever, I mean, like, it'd take you years. And there is a multiplayer, which I've hardly ever played because I'd be crap at multiplayer. But a fun game, something a little different to the zombie stuff where it's all like HZ 3.1 or whatever, or State of Decay or all this stuff. But I'm enjoying it. I want to play more of it. I want to try and get through the story mission for sure. But something I think might well come to PC after some time. Obviously, it's a Microsoft exclusive, but I do think Microsoft want to push as many their platform. I mean, ultimately, from what we're hearing in GDC, that what they want you to be able to do is, if you go onto the Xbox store on PC and you buy it on PC, you'll be able to play it on your Xbox and be able to play it on your PC. So they want to do what Sony has done with their cross-play with Vita and PS4. Oh, you've bought on the the game's available for PS3 and PS4. Oh, if you buy in one, you get it free in the other, and you can use it on either. I think they want to do that, obviously within the confines of DirectX 12 and the new Windows 10 or whatever. Like, obviously, if you're using what operating system are you using? You're using the old Windows or whatever, isn't that right?
Yeah, Windows 7. I wouldn't
Yeah.
upgrade because
No,
Windows.
it is a free. Yeah, it is going to be a free upgrade. But yeah, yeah. And other than the Windows operating system, leaving aside Mac, I mean, are people still using Linux? Is that an operating system that people use? Like,
Well, I was about to say, I think that Microsoft doing this might be to compete with SteamOS
yes. Oh no,
because
definitely.
because no one wants after Windows 8 came out and they announced that it was going to be so locked down and they were looking for the next version of Windows, which is now Windows 10, to be even more locked down. And they've got all of their spy programs in it and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure of that.
Well, no, that's documented. There's keyloggers in Windows 10.
Look, there's nothing on your or on my computer that I'd be too worried about any spies having a go at. But
that's not the point.
no,
The point is that they can then blackmail anyone, and that's what they're already doing, and they're putting people in prison for things like that. Like as soon as
what I will say to you is that it's all very early, and you never know. I mean, being told this is what we want to do and what will actually happen is, a big leap, and this should never come to market. But I know, looking at the January build session from Microsoft, when they first showed the Xbox app on Windows 10, Steam was in the Xbox app, so you'll be able to play. Steam will play nice, but what was very noticeable about the conference yesterday is they admitted point blank, Windows Live, their store at the moment, it's fine. They said, look, it's fine, but it's not a success.
It's terrible.
Right? Yeah, they said, well, exactly. They said it's not a success. It's not something we wanted, whatever. So they want you to Steam will work with your Xbox app. It probably won't be crossplay, but it'll work, and you'll be able to do sorts of weird things. You could communicate to me on my Xbox Live account and stuff like that, and it'll show what your games are, and you could share photos from your Steam games on the Windows Live platform. But clearly, there'll be advantages if you buy it on the Windows 10, the Xbox platform, because it'll be cross-play or buy.
Yeah, exactly.
As well.
They're trying to compete.
Exactly.
They know that
they want that money.
Most people hate all the extra crappy services that have come up, like Origin and Uplay and all the rest, and Windows Live. No one wants them. We just want.
Yeah, because I'm interested in this because I've never really done this. I know you're a huge Steam. Like, I've set up an account one time, but I don't really have a PC to play games. But Steam, by all accounts, is great. Although I've heard a lot more criticism by people lately in the last year to 18 months. People who I trust, people like Total Biscuit, people like even the Inside Gaming crew or the Funhouse crew, sort of saying, well, the curation system now, they're releasing like 50 games. It's getting a bit out of hand that, that they're kind of greenlighting everything, and,
they're missing the point completely, in my opinion. Like Amazon, if you take Amazon books, anyone can publish anything. I can publish a book that says nothing but the word Apple 65,000 times and say, here's my new novel, which is about, it's a post-apocalyptic thing set in a nuclear wasteland, blah, 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 blah. And I can put it up on the Amazon store. Now, they may flag it just through it just being the word Apple, but say it wasn't. Say it was just very badly written. I didn't know what a comma was or something like that.
I still don't.
I can put that up in the Amazon store, and then someone might buy that, and they have the right to get a refund because it's crap. If they click, don't like this, give me a refund. And you don't lock down the people putting stuff up. What you do is you give everyone a rating system.
Yeah.
So if something has 1 star, don't buy it. It's terrible. I mean, that's the simple way to do it. And on Amazon, that works really well because the 1-star stuff drops off the map because who cares? Who wants to play a 1-star game?
That's very interesting. Look, that's a very good point, and I do think that is relevant. But I do think if you're a distributor, yes, it's not about blocking content, but they should at least facilitate in the way that Amazon do. I think Amazon, for instance, I think it's you'd know this better, but to actually Amazon is there an issue about that, or do they have?
You disappeared for a second there. What was your question?
Sorry, I mean, do Amazon require you to have purchased the item before rating it, or can anyone go in with
Oh,
crazy
anyone can go in
reviews?
and rate it.
Yeah, I mean that's potentially a problem. For instance, I'll tell you to give you the exact example. The Xbox rate have a 5-star or 10-star rating system, and it's ridiculous. Before the game is even released, right? Certain games have, you know, 1-star ratings or 5-star ratings, depending on whatever fanboy, whatever. And clearly, 20,000 people haven't got this game yet, and already it's like, yourself. Oh, the Order 1886, before it's released. I don't care. I love Sony, but the opposite, uh, and certainly I look at certainly the Xbox store and I go, well, hang on a second, surely you shouldn't be allowed to vote on the games if it hasn't been played on your system. And the systems themselves, I can understand why Amazon wouldn't require that, because you know how do you track who has bought something or not? But certainly, the computers are well capable of sort of finding out if you've played a game or not. Every time you play a game, there's a record of it somewhere, and that might be a better way to curate. I think the obligation is on Steam to help curate, or at least help people, not get conned by these things.
But what if I go over to your house and I play a game, and you've said to me, this is a terrible game. Come and have a look at this terrible game, and I play the game number X, and game number X is absolutely atrocious. And then I go home and I go to Steam and I go, hey, I'd like to rate this 1 star. Like, it shouldn't be stopping me from rating 1 star.
You're absolutely right, Simon, and that's why. I mean, in a perfect world, you'd say, well, when you came around to my house, you used my gamer tag. Oh, I don't have your gamer tag, blah blah blah. Or I don't have a gamer tag in Xbox, or I don't have one on PlayStation, or I don't have a Steam one. Does it not mean I have no right of opinion? Look, I think you're absolutely right about that, but there does have to be a better way. There's a lot of crap that gets onto, but as you say, all platforms. All platforms get a lot of crap, So.
But Steam has a curator thing. I'm pretty sure if I look for Total Biscuit on the curator system, he'll be there.
It does, and in fact, that's how the conversation came up, because what was welcomed by people like Total Biscuit and some of the guys and YouTubers was they had these curation pages where, internet personalities, obviously it's good advertising for them, but actually it was like, look, here's the ones I recommend, and it's there, and you could follow that, I think, on Steam like you would with a Twitter handle or whatever, so you can kind of control what information you have. But what he's sort of saying is, and what other people are saying is, that's a good step forward, but in the absence of that, things have gotten quite bad. Like, literally, the front page of stuff would be like some random shit, I mean, I think what's been said before is there's descriptions in the games. Again, I've not used Steam, but I just having heard the commentary, there's descriptions of games similar to how you describe a YouTube channel where you put in a number of factors. And some of it is completely, off the wall. Look, I mean, I don't disagree with your point of view. And I think it's going on. But at the same time, a lot of the early access stuff is causing a lot of problems.
Yeah, I just think I think maybe Steam's problem is their algorithms are not quite as good as maybe Amazon's are.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a book on Amazon and it's gotten 4 1-star reviews, like it came out a month ago, it's got 4 1-star reviews and no one's buying it, that book is essentially, it might as well not be on Amazon, because no one is ever going to see it.
Yeah, dead in the water. Yeah.
So if on Steam the same thing happened, if a game is released and it gets 10 1-star reviews and no one buys it, then no one should ever see it, is essentially the way it should work.
Yeah.
It then puts the onus on people who have made good games to go out there and actually, try and get people to play it and stuff, but that's up to the developers of the game.
Sure. From that, I mean, and again, I haven't had a lot of use of Steam, and Steam is clearly something that, I mean, even the critics of, necessarily the curation of it, all they're simply saying is it could be a little bit better. Sure, everything could be a little bit better, but they're still saying it's one of the best platforms for games. There's no doubt about that.
Well, I mean, it's a way of playing. Like, I wait until the Christmas sale or the summer sale, and then I pay whatever
Humble
60,
bundles and
whatever the
whatnot.
price of a new game is, and I get 5, 6, 7 games of the year.
No, the sales are amazing. There's no doubt about that. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And I mean, what's hoped is if games are going to be cross-buy and you can buy them on the PC and then they'll, for whatever, for the PC or for the Xbox, you'd have to say, well, PC games are going to be cheaper. Therefore, is that not going to drive console games down? That's going to, be very good. It's all good competition. I think Microsoft entering into that, I hope they do a good job. I hope it becomes a viable alternative because competition is great. I mean, like the PS4, Sony really kicked off their console industry or consoles hugely, and because of that, they've cut the price. They're offering consoles all over the place with games. It's all been good for the consumers.
I just can't see what they said when this console generation came out was that it'll be the last one. And I'd be pretty sure that that'll be true because if you've got PCs, there are PCs now that are as small as a console and run pretty much completely quietly.
Yeah.
And you can have them under your TV. It's not like the old desktop like I have beside me here where it's got fans going the whole time and you couldn't have it in your living room. They're tiny little things. And they'll run Windows and they'll run Steam or they'll run Steam OS even. So you can play all your games, you can watch your TV, you can play your music. It does everything a console does, except it's not locked to a platform, which means your games only cost a fifth of what they would cost on Xbox or.
I agree.
So
I think that's why they went the direction with these. Both consoles are effectively based on PC architecture because I think for the first time ever, if there is another Xbox or another PS4, there'll be no issue backward compatibility. These things are just being run on PCs, and one of the problems is when they're just using the emotion chip or whatever crap that, is in some of these consoles occasionally. Clearly that can't necessarily be replicated by software or by PC architecture, and therefore there's a huge problem with backward compatibility. But I don't think that's going to happen going forward at all, if there is a going forward. Maybe it'll all become streaming services from now on, But anyway, moving on to the next topic. This is something that you brought to my attention. I'd seen a little bit about it. There's talk about a Blade Runner sequel. There'd been talk for some time, but it recently was confirmed, and I know you sent me a link to a Engadget article. I've seen some stuff on Harrison Ford is Harrison Ford is again as well effectively to maybe play something. What exactly has been confirmed about that? Do we know?
Yeah, he's been confirmed. He's going to come back. He's still playing the same character, Rick Deckard.
Yeah.
Which annoys me because the creator came out and said he's not a spoiler alert for Blade Runner from the 1980s. But anyway.
Okay. I think the statute of limitations may have run off on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But he said that Deckard's not a replicant, which is completely
I was never sure. I have so many versions of that. I'm never sure which one it is in the end. I thought it was deliberately ambiguous.
No, well, the whole point is at the end, the guy knows what was in Deckard's dreams, and the only way he'd know what was in Deckard's dreams is if they were programmed into Deckard.
You're assuming logic. You're assuming logic that may not exist. But yeah.
So, and they let him, and as well, they let him go at the end. Like they know where he is. They could easily
kill
Rachel
him. with him.
And Rachel with him, and basically because their time is limited, who gives a crap? Was my reasoning.
Yeah, no, and I wouldn't doubt that at all. It'll be interesting. I mean, the one thing is, if they are going to bring, my only view on this, I know your Engadget article here I'm looking at now, it's a short thing saying he's going to return to the role of Rick Deckard. The one thing is, if they are going to bring him back, I wouldn't want him just to be some cameo. He's a side thing you see for 10 minutes here and there. You
want Deckard Jr.?
So yeah, exactly. Like his, Harrison Ford's son is going to come in and be like, whatever. Just the movie's got to be about him. Otherwise, you just move on. You make an entirely different, movie about different, replicants and Blade Runners. I mean, I think when you mentioned this topic to me, I was like, look, can Harrison Ford, and I don't blame him at all for this, but can he be redeemed from what was, in the 90s and 2000s, early 2000s, this man just printed money on movies. lately he's done other things. Look, he's older now. He's not a box office draw as like he used to be. Can he come back from Indiana Jones 4? I wouldn't blame all of the skulls problems of that film on him, and it was good to see him back. As much as you and I do have a thing for Shia LaBeouf, I must say that was one film that did annoy me a little bit. His involvement in
Well,
it, Mutt, whatever his name was.
that was Lucas. It wasn't
Yeah.
LaBeouf or Harrison Ford.
Oh,
So
we're blaming poor old George Lucas for that, yeah. I mean, Spielberg
well,
and his
considering everything he's touched since the 1980s has turned to complete crap.
True.
The prequel.
Spielberg, yeah, but, I mean, can Spielberg be given a pass on this? I mean, he had as much involvement. He went along with it,
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, I just give Spielberg more credit because he's made more good stuff.
Well, he has. Yes.
Like Lucas had the original trilogy. So the first movie was obviously a really good movie. I mean, of the Star Wars movies.
Sure.
Empire Strikes Back he had the least to do with. It was directed by someone else, I believe. And then he made Return of the Jedi, which, in most people's opinion, is by far the weakest of the original trilogy. Like, a lot of people said they didn't like the Ewoks and things like that. I was of an age where Ewoks were cool when I saw it first. So,
and also, I remember I was listening to a podcast recently with Gary Whitta, who's obviously written this or done a treatment for done a treatment for the second of the new Star Wars movies. He also did work on, I think he wrote the Book of Eli, which turned into a film with Denzel Washington, and he obviously did some work in computer games, Telltale Games originally, the Walking Dead series, and I think originally he was a computer writer on like Commodore Amiga or something like that, or Commodore user. But I mean, he was just reminding us that actually the battle, the tri-party battle that's going on up in the Death Star, the new Death Star, so that's Darth Vader and Luke. Then there's the ground battle that's going on. Is it on Endor? It's on Endor, the Ewoks.
yeah, it's the moon of Endor, maybe.
Yeah, the moon of Endor, and then there's something else. The way there's three sort of battles all going on at the same time is actually a fantastic bit of cinema. And I must look at that stuff again. But I agree with you about Spielberg. What you said. I mean, like, I didn't think Lincoln was as good as. I think Lincoln was a solid movie. I don't think it was as good as all the stuff, the praise it was given, but it was certainly a solid movie. Munich is very good. War of the Worlds was decent. The Terminal is good. Catch Me If You Can, though, is an amazing movie. I think it'll stand, a lot of test of time. So it's not just the sort of Saving Private Ryan's and all that stuff in recent history. I mean, he's still, knocking out classic work. Catch Me If You Can is a kind of a timeless type of film. You'd watch that in 50 years' time, and it'll still stand up, partly because it's a period piece in its own right. But in any event, what do you think? I mean, I'm a big Ridley Scott fan, massive Ridley Scott fan. He can definitely do sci-fi. This was a huge. We've all remembered the stories about how Harrison Ford and he didn't get on well during the original, movie. But sure, that's how a lot of movie gold is often made. What do you think?
So my problem
Expectations
isn't so much
high or
with
low?
Scott or with Harrison Ford as to what they're going to do with the story, because I mean, Blade Runner as it was kind of a weird kind of visual poem or whatever you'd call it. The plot wasn't maybe the strongest part of the movie. It was the vision of the future, which someone was showing a photo from Beijing recently, and it looked exactly like Blade Runner. Like, they had a big skyscraper with advertising playing, like a big video advertising playing on the side of it, and it was in such deep smog. Like, apart from the little hella cars that they had.
Sure,
like,
yeah.
This is exactly what it was like. And, I mean, China being on the rise is, definitely part of our modern life now.
Well, I mean, it certainly had a look. It always had a great look. It had a great look as a film. It had sort of visionary stuff. It's funny to see stuff like that in the 80s, and you kind of look and go, yeah, the technology didn't really go in that direction, as it turns out. It went a slightly different direction. These kind of, move the wheel. No, more touchpads and more kind of smaller things and whatever. But an interesting future. Let's put it that way. Sort of almost cyberpunk, but I mean that was kind of
Yeah.
look.
I mean, it was obviously deeply based on Neuromancer.
Yes.
So the
I mean, do
question
you
would
think
be,
it's going to be triple A movie? Is this going to be a big blockbuster, or do you think it's going to be kind of like, oh, whatever? I'm not asking if it's going to be good or bad. Who knows? But do you think? I mean, there's even going to be massive marketing over some of this. I mean, this is not going to compete with the Marvel juggernaut that's out there for good or bad reason. I mean, is it?
I couldn't see that. Like if it wasn't Harrison Ford and Ridley Scott involved,
Yeah.
say it was some up and coming director and I don't know,
Some
like
actor from the CW. Yeah. Yeah.
actor
Totally.
from the CW or
Yeah.
from Twilight or
Yeah. Yeah.
Hunger Games or something.
Rob Pat.
Then
Yeah. Yeah.
if Arpat was going to be in it, then I go, okay, this is going to be like RoboCop or whatever. It's going to be
Oh God. Yeah. I mean, this is a terrible thing. Like, I know RoboCop, the new one, is more of a reboot than sort of a sequel, right? But like, RoboCop is the original I'm talking about now, is so good. I mean, even two and maybe three it went off the rails, but even RoboCop 2, and maybe I'm sort of revisionist history here. I think these are solid movies, like solid movies, and they will stand the test of time. But the current
well,
RoboCop, not so sure.
RoboCop 1. I watched it recently, and it's so striking because we live in that culture. Like
Mm.
the corporate, especially in America, not so much here maybe, but that corporations own everything and decide everything, and
They own the
it's the way
water, they
where.
own the police, they own the trains, yeah, everything. And that's the way it's going, definitely.
So I mean, that's where 80s, 70s and 80s sci-fi did the best job ever, was when they showed a prediction of the future where you go, well, that could actually happen. Like you could see that happening, and you can see elements of Rollerball or Blade Runner or RoboCop or whatever in our current situation, like 30 years later.
Mhm.
So the question is, if they make the new one, if they can make it so that it's looking forward 30 years and what they think the future is going to be like 30 years from now.
Do you think it will have cult? Do you think it will have popular appeal this time, or do you think it'll just be a cult classic as it always was? So, do you think the people who love Blade Runner, the cult, because it wasn't popular on release, it became popular over time. I mean, as I said, I'll reserve judgment to see if it's good or bad. We'll all have to see. Who knows? It might be a masterpiece. It might be absolute schlocky crap. But what audience is there? Do you think there'll be a brand new audience? Do you think it'll be marketed as a sort of a big blockbuster, or will this just be a kind of a niche cult thing that people who want to see this are going to see? Like you and I will go and see it, because we appreciate the original movie. There's a lot of people who don't.
Well, I don't know, but I wouldn't think that the original movie is as popular as a lot of other 80s movies, because it is a kind of its plot is very plodding. Like it's
Mhm.
not like a actiony thing like Tron maybe or something where you zip through it and it doesn't really matter that it's not particularly well
Yeah,
thought out.
the
Like
original Tron, because I bought both sets when I got on Blu-ray for the Legacy. The original Tron just like, this is pretty crap, right? But actually, it's funny. Legacy didn't do that well. But I thought Legacy was a great old romp. I really, genuinely did, except for
I enjoyed it too.
yeah, except for Jeff Bridges' kind of the dude impression in the middle of it. Like, hey man, digital highways, whoa, rad. But yeah, anyway, we'll see about Blade Runner. Good luck to Harrison Ford. I'd really like to see him, sort of get back on the horse. And I really, on the same note, I really hope he has a big part to play rather than just some sort of referential kind of character. I hope he has a big part to play in the sequels to the Star Wars 7, 8, 9. But and I hope it's a fitting sort of inclusion, in that. Otherwise, if it's not, I just would have hoped that he would have moved on and left Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, and Harrison Ford alone, and just sort of move on with the franchise in some way or another. Although I do think that would have been a hard thing to do. Just moving
Well,
forward, just on that one, just to sort of keep things moving along, I wanted to, yeah, you also, you told me earlier that you also kickstarted the Elite Dangerous game, David Braben, not Braben, Braben, isn't it? And again, that's something that was announced in GDC as coming to Xbox first. It'll debut first on consoles on the Xbox platform. There's some clarification about that today. That'll be ultimately coming out on Mac and eventually PS4 as well. Obviously, it'll be coming to PC first. You kickstarted it. Has the PC, has that been released yet, an alpha yet, or is it a beta? Have you got a copy yet, or what's the position with that?
Yeah, so at the level I kickstarted, it was a very complicated Kickstarter where there was several levels of alpha and several levels of beta, depending on how much you put in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, so for normal Kickstarters for a game, it's $10. It gets you a copy of the game because you're talking so early. It's so early on that you're really taking a big risk that there'll be a game at all. So $10, saving yourself, $40 or whatever on the price of a game is fair enough.
Absolutely, yeah, it's pretty no-brainer.
Won't even make it anyway.
It's a no-brainer when you're betting on somebody like Braven. I mean, this guy. I mean, I remember when I had my Commodore Amiga playing. I think it was the sequel to Elite. I think it was Elite Frontiers. Yeah, because I think even Elite was way before our time. And I remember playing the game, and it kind of. You kind of just flew around. It's funny what you were so happy about. It was the ideas before. The graphics, obviously, on those PCs or sort of weren't great at the time. You genuinely did use your imagination because you thought this was something like, oh wow, I watched Star Trek: The Next Generation on a Saturday, and here I am living this out in a fantasy. And ultimately, all it was a 3D vector kind of game where you went in and you traded some goods here and sold something there. It was a marketplace. And I've certainly seen screenshots from the PC version of Elite Dangerous. And I mean, the thing looks amazing, and I don't know what the gameplay will be, but I presume it'll be more of this kind of trading, and I'm not sure if there'll be combat.
There is combat. There's so there's two separate kind of chunks of the game. There's solo game, which is just like Elite 2, except your updated graphics and stuff like that. I mean, it's pretty much the same game. You're in space, you choose what you want to do, you can do whatever you want. You can trade, you can go shoot people, you can be a pirate, you can do whatever you like. And then there's the multiplayer game, which is online, so it's an MMO essentially. Mm-hmm. And in that you can choose, so you can be, for example, a big cargo vessel, right, and not have very many weapons. And then you go onto a message board and you say, okay, guys, I will give you so many credits to be my fighter wingman on this mission when we get there. And you hire real life people, real humans, to go on the mission. You're the cargo ship, you're just driving along, not able to defend yourself, and all of these fighters are around you. And someone on the message board might have seen that and gone, hey, I wonder what he's got in his cargo hold. And gone to their pirate friends and gone, okay, we know he's going here and we know it's going to be at this time, so we'll wait here for him and we'll go and shoot him. And then you can have a big space battle between the people who've been hired as bodyguards and the people who've been...
And how does the combat work? I mean, is it just effectively like firing out the front of your ship or something like that? I mean, is that basically where you're at with that?
So, I don't know if you remember, in the original Elite, if you had the first ship, your lasers just shot at the crosshairs.
Yeah.
So it was really difficult to shoot anything. Like if I'm remembering it correctly. So like you would kind of have the mouse and trying to get it in place, trying to get the enemy right in the crosshairs and be shooting, and then they're gone again and they've gone by you and you've just not even damaged their shields. And you have to try again, and it takes you like 3 hours to kill this one enemy.
Uh-huh.
And then you got like an upgraded system where it kind of did targeting for you, and then it was just like so much easier. And then you got like mining lasers, military lasers, and stuff like that. And it's pretty much the same, just kind of an updated version.
Okay, well that sounds cool, but I mean, it means there's combat and there's trading, which is kind of, it looks like it's been an update or whatever. And multiplayer, I assume that obviously multiplayer is, it's an online persistent world of some sort or another. You go into a thing, it's like, here you go. I mean, to me that sounds amazing. I mean, for instance, I don't know if you've seen, just because to me it seems to be a direct contrast to another game that's being talked about a lot of, but which looks fantastic, which is No Man's Sky.
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, well, No Man's Sky is a game that's being made by Hello Games, or a small development team in the UK, and I genuinely, after the podcast, you should definitely check out a YouTube video of it. It's certainly a beautiful game as presented, with the music and the colorful world. It's like one of this almost infinite worlds, and it's all based on a sort of a logarithm as opposed to kind of graphical polygons, bit by bit. It's all basically a mathematical equation. And genuinely, it looks very impressive. But what people don't know is, well, yes, you'll be able to fly around and do everything, but like, what's the game? Like, what can you do? And to date, they haven't really said very much, which may be a deliberate thing. They don't want to give away too much, but it seems like, well, you might be able to be the first person to get to that planet. It's an online persistent world, and if you get there first, it'll always be Simon's, no matter who comes to it. Blah blah blah. So it's weird. It's a very exciting game. PS4 have got sort of an exclusive right to that. Maybe timed exclusive, maybe a full exclusive. It's obviously going on PC as well, and it's certainly a very interesting game. Is it actually an Irish developer who runs that team? He's an Irish guy. I think it's Sean Murray or Sean Murray. I'm not sure. Really nice, charming, charismatic developer. As I said, from Ireland, and interesting. Definitely would advise you to YouTube that one just to see what the buzz about that is. I'd be interested. It'll get to PC for sure.
I can share. There's a screenshot. I'm just loading up here.
Yeah, you'll see the kind of color when you have it. Yeah.
The website.
Yeah.
So it's kind of,
you haven't heard of No Man's Sky anyway.
For yourself, kind of thing, which there's been a rash of at this stage. I would guess it's easier from a development point of view. So DayZ, for instance, was the same thing. I don't know if you heard about DayZ.
Yeah, no. Again, it's kind of like a persistent zombie world kind of thing.
But you just decide what you want to do yourself. Like, there's no like
Rust. Yeah, I've heard of DayZ and Rust. These are all kind of persistent survival worlds, effectively, isn't that it? And it's first person, is it?
DayZ is first person, yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe it's third person.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I haven't played it myself, but I just know that there's no objectives in DayZ. Or EVE Online, I think, is the same. EVE Online is a space game where there's no objectives.
That looks very impressive, I mean, this Star Citizen, man, I mean, like, I don't have a PC, but I mean, Star Citizen just looks like, because to be honest, I'll tell you one thing I would absolutely love, and I can't believe they haven't done it, is if people went back and remastered all of the, or even just 3 of the Wing, I can't remember how many, Wing Commanders, new cutscenes and just like, whatever, tighten up the graphics with like something like the Elite Dangerous engine, you know what I mean? With all those cutscenes, they would be amazing. Because I remember the music and whatever. I mean, we played these on shitty computers, like that could barely run jack shit, and it was so cinematic. It was so amazing. Honestly, I'd love to see. I mean, I know it's probably been redone a few times on PC, maybe 5-10 years ago, but I'd love to see a new Wing Commander story type of a thing. I know it's been done in other respects, but I suppose that's what Star Citizen is going to be.
Well, that's essentially what Elite Dangerous could be. I mean, like, if you have 2 monitors, have Elite Dangerous on one, and then have a Freddie Prinze Jr. movie on the other, and there you go.
I agree, but I suspect with Braben, it'll be much more like, here's the game, and it'll be like, you do the story. Whereas, obviously, Wing Commander was very much like, here's the game, but we're telling a narrative story, and you're going off to do missions within that story. Whereas I think Elite has always been something like, there's your world, you make it up. Let the players, make the story. We're not give you a narrative experience, and that's fine. As once you know what you're buying into, that's it. And I should say as well, I know Elite Dangerous won a number of awards on Monday and at the Games Developer Conference, and I know Braben himself picked up the Pioneer Award for innovation, obviously in games. It's sort of like a lifetime achievement award, although it's not named that. But so congratulations to him, and congratulations to the game, because I think it picked up at least 2 other awards on Monday. Yesterday at the Games Developer Conference award show. So fantastic. Just sorry, remind me, because I skipped over that. You've got a couple of betas of Elite Dangerous. I assume, is that where it is at with the Kickstarter, or do you just get a constant update every time? You've got the full game now, or did you just get into the beta?
Well, I've got the beta. So that was what I was going to say, was that there's been so many phases. So it started last year, maybe around May time, something like that, April something, with the alphas, and people started going in. And then I got into the beta. I got a beta version, I don't know, around August, September time, I think. And I generally don't like playing betas because they're usually shonky and don't work.
Yeah.
And I didn't pay good money to play a game that doesn't work. I just wait for a while.
I don't pay money to be a playtester.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the playtesters got paid before.
Yeah.
There's no reason to do the job for free for them. The same reason why I buy games on Steam sales, because they've then been out for at least 6 months, which means that they've actually been tested and updated and actually
patched to make them work.
Yeah, where it's now like a standard that a new release doesn't work on launch.
Yeah,
I mean,
pretty much.
It's not the exception anymore. It's quite it happens quite a lot.
Oh, totally. For all you Xbox fanboys out there, I mean, not that I've really played a lot of I enjoyed the Halo Master Chief Collection because I'd never played the campaign, so I went through the single-player campaigns, and I thought I got great value for my 50 quid. But there's been a new patch out yesterday, and seemingly it has fixed all of the multiplayer problems 3 months after it launched, So Microsoft will have to do a lot.
Console. I mean, like, I don't understand why this bugs on PC, but consoles are all the same architecture. It's the same hardware over and over.
Yeah, somebody screwed up. The game itself actually was fine, but on the multiplayer side, somebody screwed up. They obviously didn't test it enough. To be fair, it's overblown. The criticism of that game was people couldn't get in. Once you got into the multiplayer, it worked fine. There was no problems with the game. There's no actual problems with the game. It was just the entry into matchmaking just did not work. People would either couldn't get in or would be waiting too long, and just they weren't able to fix that. They clearly did not fix. They did not test it enough. Whatever they've done, changing into dedicated servers, has changed a few things, which is really strange because. That's a first party. That's a first party title. Titanfall is a third party title, and to be fair, they did one beta about a week in advance of their launch, and it did fine. Destiny is a multi-party third party title, and the multiplayer for Xbox, PS4 did not have the same problems, and they should have been the people without the information and with the problems. They're not even on dedicated servers, so I don't know. Major screw up, but at the same time, Microsoft has somewhat done right by the multiplayer people there, and but they may have really damaged that franchise. Like, people don't forget these things anymore. There's too much stuff that sticks around the internet.
I mean, it's the reason I dropped out of Call of Duty was because of crap like that.
Yeah.
They went away from dedicated servers because they wanted to please the console crowd. Because consolers were getting annoyed with the fact that we had 64-player multiplayer, and they had like 8 on 8 was the maximum. So they were like, what the heck, why can't we get that? Why do PC players get all this? Why do they get custom?
The master race succeeds again.
So instead of bumping console players up, no, let's drag PC players down. So that really annoyed me. That's
that brings us to our final topic. So it's a good segue into the final topic, which is about the PC Master Race and this announcement that I've been banging on about for a few weeks, and was kind of announced again at GDC. Microsoft with its new Windows 10, its new DirectX 12, and the Xbox app. They're going to have a universal app. This idea of cross-play, irrespective of your reservations about upgrading to Windows 10, and I mean, what do you think? What do you think about? Would you ever be interested in cross-play? This has happened once or twice before. I think there was a game, Shadow complex. Was it was
Shadow Run, maybe?
Shadowruns? Yeah, yeah, Shadowrun. Um, where this happened, and it
It
didn't
was
quite work as
a
much.
disaster.
They're trying to do something where it's like, right, you'll get into this thing. It'll be PC, it'll be Xbox. You can choose to say, I'm not playing with PC, Xbox only. I want to play only against PC players, or I want to play against everybody. Well, okay, so choice. That's cool. They're also then, once you go and say, I want to play against Xbox, PC, you can then sort of filter it and say only controller v controller. So if you're on PC and you don't have a controller, I don't play you, or I don't mind playing against mouse and keyboard. That's fine. Now, obviously, in some games like first-person shooters, it's going to make a massive difference, and you might want to filter.
Oh, it'll be unplayable for consolers.
Exactly, exactly. And in some games where it's maybe a turn-based something RPG, not going to make a big difference in terms of latency or anything like that. One would have thought. It's not going to cause the same problems.
Not well. I would just say that if I was playing against a consoler, the consoler is going to take longer. So I would go, okay, I'm not going to play against consolers again because they take an hour and a half to take their turn.
Yes.
Because the controller, I've said this before, the controller on a console is perfect for platform games or for racing games, things like that. Perfect. But it doesn't do strategy games and it doesn't do shooters well. And there's no reason why consolers can't have a mouse and keyboard other than the theory I've heard before is that they didn't, like a mouse and keyboard could work on an Xbox 360 or an Xbox One. There's no reason for...
Yeah, they've USB things, there's no doubt about that. They don't want you playing in front of a table. That's the difference, really, isn't it? I mean, like, it's kind of you're on a couch and you're sitting back as opposed to sitting forward. Isn't that that's the adage, whether you believe it or maybe there's some other fucking nefarious reason, who knows, but I mean that seems to be the position.
Well, it just what I heard was that they didn't want people to then think of it as a PC, because if you think of it as a PC, why not just get a PC?
True. True.
Like,
I mean, that's
a
a
PC
valid
can have an Xbox 360 controller.
I think, I mean, there's 3 USBs in an Xbox One. I'm looking at it now. It clearly there's ways to plug keyboards into it if you so wanted to do that. Clearly, there's ways to plug mouses into it or mice into it, and they may well do that, particularly if they try and they really get their crossplay going. But genuinely. I agree with you. It may be for perception reasons. They're certainly not going to be selling these things with mouse and keyboards. Albeit, the one advantage is, Simon, I mean, you have to say is that, for 350 quid or 400 quid, whatever you're buying your console for, you're getting a lot of PC. I mean, it is a PC now. Like, there's no special graphics chips in these things anymore. They are effectively on, bog standard PC hardware, mid-range PCs, not top end, but mid-range PC. And actually, for 350. 400 quid, you're actually not getting a bad PC. You're not getting top of the range, and it's not in any way future thinking, but it's not a bad deal. I mean, they're selling it for cheap.
It's an okay deal at launch.
Yes.
And then, like, 2 or 3 years down the line, it's a bad deal. Like, because the hardware is just about low mid-range.
Yeah, and it'll be low very soon.
And it'll be low very soon.
Yeah, so what they have to do is try and design it so that, and I think that currently the reason they've designed it, like in both platforms, PS4 and Xbox, not that I'm a designer, but I do think that whether it'll turn out to be correct or not, they seem to be relying very much on, the power of these consoles is not going to worry too much, because ultimately this is all going to be like streamed in on the internet. So as long as they've got enough power to do that, we'll siphon it through the cores, and there'll be Now, I'm not sure about that. I mean, particularly if you're in America, I mean, the internet isn't good enough to do that anyway, even at optimal, and even if you weren't worried about the internet and you had optimal internet, I mean, I'm not sure if the technology's there, but these guys are clever people. They say this generation is going to last 10 years. Sounds like a long time for what is kind of mid-range PCs. But
well, they had a service, I don't know if you remember it, a little while ago. I forget what it's called. On live, yeah. So they had a service for a while where you could stream games, and they were running on high-end PCs.
Where is that service now? Says Simon. Where is it?
Because you had to be within 10 miles of one
Oh
of their
God.
centers, and even then the latency was so bad that you couldn't really play the games,
Yeah.
was what I heard or read.
Yeah, it didn't
So
last, basically. I mean, none of those have lasted. Sony have launched a streaming service as well, and to be honest, it looks very expensive. It looks very
like it's
expensive to
just
rent games. Often you go, sure, I could buy it for this price after 4 hours. You know what I mean? So
you could buy it for that price, and
not
you're
have the
dealing
lag.
with anything that needs quick reactions is going to
Yeah.
have massive lag, and you can't play it.
Yeah, I've seen some demos of like Street Fighter being done, which you'd think would be really bad, and actually it works because I think what they do is instead of the lag, they make sure that the graphics go shit before the lag comes in, if you know what I mean. Right? So they render it at 1080p, and the moment it's like, oh, we can't keep up with the hands, it's like render it at 420. No, render it 32, whatever. So I think what happens is the graphics actually shade off, but the latency stays. That's the trick. I think they've programmed it that way, but still. I've seen it being demoed in conferences. I've never played it myself, and you kind of think, well, in conferences they're fucking hardwired in as opposed to Wi-Fi. Although in fairness, even my Xbox, I mean, I hardwire it in because it's where it is, so it's not inconvenient. Wi-Fi always creates problems with extra latency, I think, for stuff like that. But like sometimes you think you see it at a conference, under controlled conditions, and you kind of think they've hardwired it in with the fastest internet like known to man. Like so there's no latency when the
It,
journalists come along and take
it,
photographs of it. That's it.
their server is 10 paces from the
Yeah,
journal.
it's literally under the arse of the console. You know what I mean? Like,
It's not really streaming at all.
yeah, exactly. They're literally exactly. So what does know? But anyway, will there be if Elite Dangerous is cross compatible? And I suspect it might be, with Xbox, and you're able to play your Elite Dangerous on your computer, and it's like, oh, Michael's messaged me, he has the game too, and he gets into thing. That is cool, you
Yeah,
know?
certainly.
But you're supportive of that, because the reality is that, um, you know, you've always loved PC games. I mean, you've been a PC gamer before, like forever. Forever. Like you've never actually have you ever owned a console?
Yeah, I own lots of consoles.
What
I have the
consoles do
Wii,
you
I have
have?
the Wii U, the PS2, PS3.
Oh right. I didn't know this.
It's just I buy consoles, I try
Traitor.
them, and then I go, well, this is crap compared to a PC, so I go back to PC.
What was your favorite game in the PS3?
Uh, what did I play that was good?
Because my brother Robert's a PS3 owner, now a proud Xbox One owner. But he
Um,
liked The Last of Us, Heavy Rain. These are games I never played. The games that I never played are Last of Us and Heavy Rain. Those are the two that I
yeah,
go, oh, I really would have wished I would have played those at some stage. Even I think I bought Robert Beyond Two Souls for a present at some stage. But I've always liked the David Cage's games. Like Fahrenheit got re-released there a couple of weeks ago, and I played that on Xbox 360. I really enjoyed that game. I kind of enjoyed those interactive movie type things, before Telltale was Telltale.
Jim
Um,
Position's a big fan of those, isn't he?
yeah, Jim Sterling. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Uh,
But no, on PS3 I played Uncharted was good. I didn't finish it. I got like 30-something% through it.
the Uncharted series, I would have liked to play those too, and the new one for PS4 looks amazing. I'm looking forward to this. A timed exclusive, although we'll see. Tomb Raider, the recent one, was quite good. I played that on Xbox 360. It's a really good game. It's a really good game, and I suspect the new Tomb Raider this fall will be very good as well. And I suspect with this new deal with Microsoft, even though it's an Xbox exclusive, I suspect it'll go to PC as well. And it'll be a long time before it gets to PS4, but eventually it will. But I suspect it'll be Xbox, PC, and then PS4. But look, whenever you get it, whichever platform you're on, I think it'll be a terrific game. It looks, because the last one was very good, and as long as they keep to those building blocks, we'll see. I'm all for cross-platform things. If this podcast continues, Simon, I hope we'll be able to come back and talk about the games we played against each other.
Sure,
You know?
sounds good.
And hopefully you won't need to buy an Xbox to be able to say that. So that's it. Anyway, that brings us to our final topic. this is the end of the episode 3 of the Pundits podcast. Simon, where can people can get me on Twitter at the Bad Barrister or Bad Barrister at Bad Barrister, and nowhere else. Simon, where can we contact you at? What's your Twitter handle?
Oh, my Twitter handle's scanton. The easiest way to find me though is my website, simoncanton.com.
Okay, and hit you up for that. You'll find all sort of advice. But that's your writing page. Is that right?
Yeah, so I have writing page, but I also have my blog over there. So I just did a review of House of Cards Season 3, for instance.
Okay, I better stay away from that. Is that spoiler
No, it's
free?
a review. It's not a, like, if I was going to write something with spoilers, I put thoughts on House of Cards. If it's a review, I don't spoil anything.
Okay, well, I must take a look at that. I must get on with it and actually get through House of Cards, because I've been very careful. It's terrible. You have to be very careful when you go on Twitter or anything like that, not to kind of, to just be very careful about what you're about to read, because
someone already spoiled something. I watched it on. It was out Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So I was finished with it then. So I was finished Tuesday, and I had something spoiled. I mean, I could not have watched it faster without just watching it in a row.
It's just so weird. There's just, people don't even give you like a week's grace anymore, these kind of series. But anyway. All right, that's it. We'll wrap it up. We'll try and do this same time, 8:30 next week. Sorry, GMT, 8:30. What time zone are you in?
CET, Central.
CET, it's something like 9:30, isn't that right? When we start, by 8:30 is your 9:30. Yeah. So we'll try and do this next week. Thanks very much. We're out.
Yep. Thank you.
See you.